The stars glittered in the night sky as Captain Alex Reynolds piloted his ship through the vastness of space. His mission was simple: explore new worlds and report back any findings to Earth. But as he approached the planet Zorith, an unexpected anomaly appeared on his radar. The ship's systems began to malfunction, and alarms blared, filling the cockpit with a sense of urgency. "What's going on?" Alex muttered, his hands gripping the controls tightly. He fought to stabilize the ship, but the gravitational pull of the planet was too strong. The ship was spiraling out of control, and there was nothing he could do. With a jolt, the ship entered Zorath's atmosphere, and the heat of re-entry began to cause the metal hull to creak and groan. As the planet's surface rapidly approached, Alex braced for impact. The ship crashed into the ground with a thunderous roar, skidding across the rocky terrain before coming to a halt. Everything was silent except for the soft crackling of fires from the wreckage. For a moment, Alex just sat there, his mind racing. "I'm alive," he whispered, almost in disbelief. He checked himself for injuries, finding only minor cuts and bruises. The ship, however, was beyond repair. The communication systems were fried, and the emergency beacon was destroyed in the crash. He sighed, grabbing his emergency kit before exiting the cockpit. The world outside was unlike anything he had ever seen. Lush, with strange, glowing flora that bathed the landscape in an ethereal light. The air was thick with a sweet, intoxicating scent, making him feel lightheaded. He quickly reached for his oxygen mask, securing it over his face. As he began to explore his surroundings, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. The eerie quiet of the alien world only heightened his senses. He scanned the horizon, looking for any sign of life or shelter. In the distance, he noticed a series of hills that might offer some refuge. "I need to find shelter before nightfall," Alex thought, determined to survive. He started walking towards the hills, the glowing plants casting strange, shifting shadows that played tricks on his mind. Every so often, he stopped, certain that something was watching him. But he saw nothing. Finally, after what felt like hours, he found a cave nestled at the base of one of the hills. The entrance was dark and foreboding, but it was the best option he had. Taking a deep breath, Alex stepped inside, the cool air of the cave a welcome relief from the outside. He set up a small camp, using his scanner to check the atmosphere. It was just breathable enough without his mask. As he lay down on the cold, stone floor, exhaustion began to take over. His eyes grew heavy, and despite the discomfort, he drifted into a restless sleep, the feeling of being watched never fully leaving him. In the middle of the night, Alex was jolted awake by the sound of movement outside the cave. His senses were immediately on high alert. He quietly got to his feet, grabbing the small laser tool from his belt. Creeping towards the cave entrance, he peered outside, his heart pounding in his chest. To his shock, a figure stood at the edge of the clearing. It was tall and slender, with skin that shimmered in the pale light of the glowing plants. Long, flowing hair cascaded down its back, and it wore a garment that seemed to be made of living vines. The figure was undoubtedly alien, but there was a grace and beauty to it that left Alex speechless. The alien turned towards him, its large, glowing eyes locking onto his. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, and the world around them faded away, leaving just the two of them. Neither of them spoke, but the air between them was thick with curiosity and caution. Finally, the alien woman, at least she appeared female, spoke. Her voice was soft and melodic, sending a shiver down Alex's spine. The words were strange, but the tone was gentle, almost soothing. "You, human?" she asked, her accent thick but understandable. Alex nodded slowly, lowering his laser tool to show he meant no harm. "Yes, I'm human. My name is Alex. I crashed here." The alien woman studied him for a moment longer, then nodded as if understanding. "I am Lyra. You, Hurt." Alex touched the dried blood on his forehead. Just a few cuts and bruises. I'm fine. Lyra stepped closer, her eyes scanning him carefully. She reached out hesitantly, then gently touched his arm. Her touch was cool and light, and Alex felt his pulse quicken, but he stayed still, letting her examine him. After a moment, she nodded, seemingly satisfied. Come, she said, gesturing for him to follow. Safe place near. Alex hesitated for only a moment before nodding. He had no other options, and there was something in her eyes, a kindness, a sincerity, that made him trust her. He was alone on a strange planet, and she was the only ally he had. Together, they walked into the unknown, the night growing darker with each step. The night deepened around them, the alien landscape bathed in the soft, eerie glow of the strange flora. Alex kept close to Lyra, his senses heightened by the unfamiliar environment. The ground beneath their feet was uneven, and the air was thick with the sweet, intoxicating scent of the plants. It made Alex's head swim, but he forced himself to stay alert. Lyra moved with a fluid grace, her steps barely making a sound on the rocky terrain. Every now and then, she glanced back at Alex, her glowing eyes filled with an unreadable emotion. He couldn't tell if it was concern, curiosity, or something else entirely. Despite the uncertainty, he felt a strange sense of calm in her presence, as if she was a lifeline in this alien world. After what seemed like an eternity, they arrived at a small clearing nestled between two large, jagged rocks. In the center of the clearing was a structure made of woven vines and glowing crystals, pulsating softly in the darkness. It was unlike anything Alex had ever seen, a perfect blend of nature and technology. Lyra led him to the entrance, which was covered by a curtain of luminescent tendrils. She brushed them aside and motioned for him to enter. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of fresh earth. The walls of the structure were lined with more glowing crystals, casting a gentle light that filled the space with a warm, welcoming glow. Here, safe, Lyra said, her voice soft as she watched Alex take in his surroundings. Rest. Alex nodded, feeling the weight of exhaustion settle over him once more. He found a spot on the soft, moss-covered floor and sat down, leaning against the cool, smooth wall. His mind was racing with questions, but he knew they would have to wait until morning. For now, all he wanted was to close his eyes and rest. Lyra watched him for a moment before she turned and began to prepare something from a small pouch at her side. She mixed a few herbs and powders together, creating a paste that she brought over to Alex. For wounds, she explained, holding out the mixture. Alex hesitated for a moment before taking the paste and applying it to the cuts on his face and arms. The cool sensation was soothing, and almost immediately, he felt a gentle tingling as the paste began to work its magic. Thank you, he said, looking up at Lyra with gratitude. She nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Sleep now. I watch. Alex's eyelids grew heavy as he lay down on the soft moss. The glow of the crystals dimmed slightly, casting the room into a comfortable twilight. As he drifted off to sleep, he couldn't help but wonder about the mysterious alien woman who had found him and what the future held on this strange, unknown planet. When Alex awoke, the first thing he noticed was the gentle hum of the crystals embedded in the walls. The soft light they emitted had a calming effect, easing the remnants of exhaustion from his body. He sat up slowly, noticing that the wounds on his arms and face had healed significantly overnight. The paste Lyra had given him had worked wonders. Lyra was sitting across the room, her back to him, as she carefully arranged a variety of plants and herbs on a woven mat. She seemed lost in thought, her movements precise and deliberate. Alex watched her for a moment, marveling at the elegance of her actions. There was something almost hypnotic about the way she moved, as if every gesture was part of a larger, unseen dance. Finally, Lyra turned to him, her eyes meeting his with a soft, curious gaze. You slept well? She asked, her voice carrying a melodic tone that made the alien language sound almost familiar. Yes, thank you. Alex replied, standing and stretching. I feel much better. Lyra nodded, pleased. She motioned for him to join her on the mat, where she had arranged a simple meal of fruits and nuts. The food looked strange, with colors and textures Alex had never seen before, but the aroma was inviting. Hesitating only briefly, he sat down and took a piece of fruit, biting into it cautiously. To his surprise, the taste was sweet and refreshing, with a subtle tang that made his mouth water. He smiled at Lyra, who watched him intently as he ate. This is good, Alex said, taking another bite. Thank you. Lyra inclined her head in acknowledgement but didn't respond immediately. Instead, she seemed to be considering something, her eyes flickering with an emotion Alex couldn't quite place. Why you come? She finally asked, her tone serious. Alex paused, swallowing his food before answering. I'm an explorer. My mission is to find new worlds, learn about them, and report back to my people on Earth. But something went wrong with my ship. I didn't mean to crash here. Lyra listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. When he finished, she sighed, a sound that conveyed both understanding and something deeper, perhaps a hint of sadness. Zoreth, dangerous, she said slowly, choosing her words with care. Not like Earth. Many secrets. Some not safe. Alex frowned. What do you mean? What kind of dangers? Lyra hesitated, then looked away, her gaze distant. This world, full of life. But not all life is friendly. Some creatures, ancient, powerful. And not all who come to Zoreth survive. A shiver ran down Alex's spine. He had suspected that this world was more than it seemed, but hearing it confirmed by someone who lived here made the situation feel all the more precarious. Have others come here before? Alex asked, leaning forward. Lyra nodded slowly. Few. Many years ago. They did not stay long. The planet, it changed them. Changed them how? Alex's heart pounded as he awaited her answer. Zoreth has a way of influencing those who stay too long, Lyra said, her voice tinged with an ominous undertone. It can show you things, make you see what you want to see, but also what you fear. The mind becomes fragile. Some cannot handle it. Alex felt a knot form in his stomach. The strange atmosphere, the glowing plants, the sweet scent in the air. Everything about this world was starting to feel like a carefully constructed illusion, designed to lure and ensnare. Why are you helping me? Alex asked, suddenly wary. Lyra's eyes softened, and she reached out to gently touch his hand. Because you are different. I see it in your eyes. You have a strong mind. You can resist the influence, if you are careful. Alex looked into her glowing eyes, seeing the sincerity there. He knew she was telling the truth, or at least what she believed to be true. But it didn't make the situation any less dangerous. What do I need to do? He asked, his voice firm. Lyra stood and gestured for him to follow her outside. As they stepped into the daylight, the landscape around them seemed to shimmer with a strange energy, as if the world itself was alive and aware of their presence. You must find the heart of Zoreth, Lyra said, pointing toward the distant mountains. There you will face the true nature of this planet. Only then can you decide your fate, whether to stay, to leave, or to be consumed by the planet's power. Alex stared at the mountains, their peaks shrouded in a swirling mist. The path ahead was unclear, fraught with unknown dangers, but he knew he had no choice. If he wanted to survive, he had to confront whatever lay at the heart of this mysterious world. I'll do it, Alex said, determination filling his voice. Lyra nodded, a small, sad smile playing on her lips. I will guide you, but the final steps you must take alone. With that, they set off towards the mountains, leaving the safety of the clearing behind. The journey would be long and perilous, but Alex knew he had to trust Lyra and his instincts. The secrets of Zoreth awaited him, and with them, the key to his survival or his undoing. The trek toward the mountains was grueling. The further they traveled, the more the landscape around them shifted. The once lush surroundings gave way to jagged rocks and barren plains, with the glowing flora becoming increasingly sparse. The air grew heavier, and the sweet scent that had once permeated the atmosphere was replaced by a faint metallic tang that clung to Alex's senses. As they walked, Lyra explained more about Zorath's nature. The planet. It has a consciousness. It feeds off the minds of those who come here, drawing power from their thoughts, their fears. The heart of Zorath is where this power is strongest. Alex listened intently, his mind racing with questions. If the planet is alive, can it be reasoned with? Lyra shook her head. It is not like us. It does not think or feel as we do. It is more like a force of nature, something primal and ancient. It cannot be reasoned with, only confronted. As they drew closer to the mountains, the terrain became more treacherous. Strange creatures skittered in the shadows, their eyes glowing with a predatory hunger. But Lyra seemed to know the way, leading Alex along narrow paths and through hidden valleys where the air was still and eerily quiet. Finally, after days of arduous travel, they reached the base of the mountains. The mist that shrouded the peaks was thick and swirling, alive with a strange energy that made Alex's skin prickle. This was the place. He could feel it in his bones. Lyra stopped and turned to face him, her expression serious. "This is where I must leave you," she said, her voice tinged with sorrow. "The path ahead is one you must walk alone. Whatever you find at the heart of Zorath, it will test you in ways you cannot imagine." Alex nodded, feeling the mixture of fear and determination. "Thank you, Lyra, for everything." She reached out and gently touched his cheek, her eyes filled with a deep, unspoken emotion. "Be strong, Alex. Remember who you are, and do not let the planet take that from you." With that, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the mist without another word. Alex watched her go, a sense of loss washing over him, but he knew there was no turning back. Steeling himself, he began the ascent into the mountains. The climb was steep and perilous, the mist thickening with every step. Strange visions flickered at the edges of his sight, glimpses of memories, fears, and desires that threatened to overwhelm him. But Alex kept moving forward, determined to reach the heart of the planet. At last, he emerged into a vast, open chamber at the mountain's peak. The walls of the cavern glowed with a pulsating light, and at the center of the chamber stood a massive, crystalline structure, pulsating with energy. This was the heart of Zorath. As Alex approached, the air around him seemed to vibrate with a low, resonant hum. The closer he got, the more the planet's influence pressed on his mind. He felt his thoughts twisting, memories resurfacing, and his fears amplifying. Suddenly, the crystalline structure emitted a bright flash of light, and Alex found himself surrounded by figures from his past, his family, friends, and even those he had lost over the years. They spoke to him, their voices a chorus of confusion and despair. "Why did you leave us?" one voice cried. "You're a failure," another whispered. "You'll never make it back home," a third taunted. Alex clenched his fists, fighting against the onslaught of negative emotions. He knew these were manifestations of his own mind, brought to life by the planet's power. He had to resist, to push through the darkness, and find his way back to himself. "I am Alex Reynolds," he said, his voice firm and clear. "I am more than my fears. I am more than my doubts." The figures around him wavered, their forms flickering like dying flames. But the pressure on his mind only intensified, the planet pushing harder to break him. He fell to his knees, the weight of the planet's influence almost too much to bear. But then, amidst the chaos, he heard a familiar voice, Lyra's voice, gentle and soothing. "Remember who you are," she whispered, her words a lifeline in the storm. With a surge of strength, Alex pushed back against the planet's influence. He focused on the memories that gave him hope, on the people who believed in him, on the life he wanted to return to. Slowly, the figures around him began to fade, their voices growing fainter. The crystalline structure before him dimmed, its light pulsing weaker and weaker. Alex knew he was winning, that he was breaking free of Zoreth's grip. Finally, with one last burst of energy, Alex stood tall, his mind clear and his resolve unshakable. The chamber around him began to crumble, the planet's hold on him loosening. The crystalline heart shattered, and with it, the oppressive atmosphere that had weighed on him since his arrival. The mist dissipated, the air becoming fresh and clear. The ground beneath him steadied, and the light in the chamber faded to a gentle glow. The planet had lost its power over him. Breathing heavily, Alex looked around, feeling a profound sense of peace. He had confronted the heart of Zoreth and emerged victorious. But now he had to find his way home. As he turned to leave, he saw Lyra standing at the entrance to the chamber, her form shimmering with the same ethereal light that had once filled the cave. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with admiration. Alex smiled, though he was exhausted. "I couldn't have done it without you." Lyra stepped closer, her eyes soft. "Zoreth is at peace now, thanks to you. But your journey is not over. The planet will release you, if you wish to leave." Alex hesitated, looking back at the shattered remains of the crystal heart. The planet was no longer a threat, but there was still so much he didn't understand about it. And then there was Lyra. "Will you come with me?" he asked, his voice filled with hope. Lyra smiled sadly. "My place is here, with Zoreth, but you will always carry a part of this world with you, and I will remember you." Alex felt a pang of sadness, but knew in his heart that she was right. He had to return to his world, to share what he had learned, and to continue his mission. "Goodbye, Lyra," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Goodbye, Alex," she replied, her form beginning to fade into the light. "May your journey be filled with light." With one last look, Alex turned and began the descent down the mountain. As he walked, the landscape around him began to shift once more. The path became clearer, the air lighter, and the oppressive energy of the planet receded. By the time he reached the base of the mountains, he saw the faint outline of his ship in the distance, bathed in the golden light of Zoreth's sun. The ship, which had been damaged beyond repair, now seemed to be whole again, as if the planet had restored it as a final gift. Alex approached the ship cautiously, but everything seemed in order. The systems were functioning, the communications array was back online, and the ship was ready to take off. With a deep breath, Alex boarded the ship and powered up the engines. As he ascended into the sky, he looked down at the planet one last time. The once ominous world now seemed calm, serene, a reflection of the peace he had found within himself. As the ship broke through the planet's atmosphere and entered the vastness of space, Alex set a course for home. He had survived the trials of Zoreth, uncovered its mysteries, and learned more about himself in the process. The stars stretched out before him, and with a sense of renewed purpose, Alex knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his journey, a journey that would take him to new worlds, new discoveries, and perhaps, one day, back to Zoreth. But for now, he was heading home.